Welcome to episode 49 of the CRM MVP podcast. When I was thinking about what topic to discuss in this episode as we get close to episode number 50, there are two things that happen this week when I'm recording this episode, which happens to be the week of March 11th. Number one, I worked on my activities, my MVP or contributions for the last 12 months. So let me explain what that means for those of you who are non-MVPs. So every year, MVPs and non-MVPs go through a process to receive the award. I think that most people know by now that the MVP award is a yearly award, and people lose it every year, and obviously a lot of people get it every year as well. So it's never really guaranteed that just because you're an MVP, you're going to continue to be an MVP for years and years and years. And, I think a lot of MVPs take pride on the fact that they have been, a multi-time MVP, because in all reality, and I think it also depends on the type of product that you work with, your classification as an MVP. And for us, the ones that work with Dynamics 365, we are business applications MVPs. I still call myself a CRM MVP because that's my specialty, Dynamics CRM or Dynamics 365. But I think, depending on the product that you're working with, whether it is Windows or Xbox, there's MVPs for every single product Microsoft makes. I feel like maybe it's hard to find people who are multiple times MVPs in other areas. Or I think that on the business application side, it's a lot easier to find CRM MVPs specifically that are multiple times MVPs. And the reason for that, I believe, is that all of us are really, really involved in this community. It's a very, very small community. And, we really love to work on the solution and keep people up to date and sort of leverage that. And I think in a lot of ways, sometimes I feel like sometimes it's selfish, because being on top of things, or I would say the idea of sharing things, sharing best practices, sharing my own experience with you guys listening to this podcast and the community in general, it's kind of selfish in the sense that I then am forced to learn this stuff. I then am forced to practice and put functionality in place, be the first ones trying it and potentially failing, adopting a new solution just so I can talk about it with you guys. And I've mentioned that several times. If you listen back to episode number 3, when we talked about becoming an MVP, I mentioned that my path to the MVP award was a very selfish path. It was essentially me trying to improve and become better with Dynamics CRM back in the day in 2012 when I received the award. So it was 2010, 2011 when I started going to the community and I started answering every question. And if you look at, I posted a video a couple months ago, I think it was in December, of me for 30 minutes doing what I call quote unquote MVP activities or MVP work, which is essentially going through the community. I think I use CRMG, the CRMG forum at that point, and literally just opening every single question and answering them all without even reading the title. It doesn't really matter what the question was about. I don't need to be an expert on it, because opening those questions and helping people will then push me to, find a solution to their problem, to really try to help them. And I really enjoy that because I learn a lot in the process. So back in the day, 2010, 2011, whatever it was, I really, really wanted to become better at my job. I recently got a new position as a functional consultant, and I was working in Dynamics CRM Online exclusively. I was coming from a partner that was doing on-prem more than anything. Almost 100% of our projects were on-prem, and now I jumped into a company that was doing online only, almost exclusively. We had a few customers on-prem, but it was mainly online. So in order for me to learn more on how customers are using this, there was two ways to do it. One was to be involved in projects, which I was, and try to understand how companies could benefit from CRM Online. And the other one is to see how other customers were already using it, companies that had been using it for a year or 6 months or whatever it was. And the best way to deal with that it was for me at least to go to the community and help people out, help them with their problems, researching. Sometimes it would take me 2 days to find a solution for someone who lives on the other side of the world, who I'm never going to probably meet in person, and I'm not getting any money from this, but I'm getting the knowledge, right? And, once you do that many, many, many times, hundreds and hundreds of times, and answer hundreds and hundreds of questions, people will notice you. And that's what happened to me. So back in 2012, somebody took notice. I think it was somebody from the Microsoft community, and nominated me to receive the award, which I got in 2012. But since then, I've continued to essentially provide and contribute to the community, every year. And I've been re-awarded every year since then. So 7-time MVP so far. So every year, MVPs are re-awarded in July 1st. And the process to essentially, I guess, understand what you've done and evaluate what you've done, and demonstrate and check that the contributions that you've done are legit, because I assume some people will submit or claim that they have been doing X amount of activities, but they have no way to prove that those activities were done. So Microsoft goes through a process. There's a portal, and maybe I'm giving you too much information on this, but there's a portal where we go to log our activity. And then Microsoft takes that and they go through a process to vet all of those activities, make sure that you really spoke at whatever conference, or that you did deliver whatever sessions on your local user groups and whatever it is. So whatever you're submitting, videos, podcasts, posts, blog posts, questions that you answer on whatever community, anything that you can think of as being a community contribution will be analyzed and approved by Microsoft, and essentially so it counts for your MVP renewal. So that process begins in March, or let's just say April 1st, because for the month of March, it's essentially the last month that we have a chance to add our contributions for the year. So the way it counts is I add contributions from April 1st all the way to March 31st, and then starting on April 1st, they'll analyze that year, and hopefully in July 1st, they'll consider that I've done enough to, to receive the MVP award for, in this case, will be 2019 to 2020, right? So that's essentially how the process works. New MVPs are a little bit different because new MVPs can be awarded any month of the year. Current MVPs are only awarded in July. So, if you're listening to this podcast, you're familiar with some of the MVPs. Perhaps you really, really like a few of them for their skills or the way they communicate, whatever it is. Well, keep your eyes open. In July 1st, most of us will be sharing the news of whether we received the award or we didn't. And like I said, I can't remember the last year where someone was not stripped from the award. In some years, unfortunately, people have things that happen. You don't have enough time to contribute, whatever it is, and you don't kind of stand out on the community that year, and you can lose the award. You can regain the award. We have MVPs in our family that lost the award for maybe 3 months, 6 months, a year, whatever, and then came back into the program later on, whether it was for health reasons or work reasons or relationships, whatever it was. But that has happened in the past. Now, again, let me get to the point here, because I really want to spend time talking about aspiring MVPs. And the reason, again, going back to this whole story, is that this week I enter all my activities, obviously not until March 31st, because this is the week of March 11th, so there's still a few more weeks to go. And within those weeks, I'll be attending the CRM Summit in EMEA, Extreme 365 in EMEA. So there's a few more things that I need to add in there. But, I did that this week. And the other thing that happened this week is that, in kind of extreme high gear, getting stuff done, because I will be leaving to the MVP Summit this weekend. So Saturday, I'm flying to Redmond to attend the MVP Summit. I think this will be my 6th or 7th summit. I've only missed one, but there was a year that they did the summit twice for some reason, or it was almost back-to-back, like November and March, and I missed the one in November, but I attended the one in March, something like that. It doesn't matter. It's besides the point. The point is, I'm getting ready to attend MVP Summit, so excitement is at an all-time high, and it doesn't matter how many times I go. I'm always excited to go for two main reasons. Three. Number one, I get to see all my MVP friends. Which when you are in conferences that are here local, there's about 30 to 40, I would say, MVPs in the U.S., and we kind of know each other. We hang out at conferences, and we're always together. But then there's the vast majority of MVPs live outside the U.S. And it is true that sometimes, especially for the largest conferences, we get MVPs from all over the world to come to those conferences here in the U.S. But that's never the case in the numbers that we get at the MVP Summit. So at the MVP Summit, we get MVPs from all over the world, So out of I think there's about 94 to 96 MVPs right now. There's about 100, let's just say 100 MVPs. 100 CRM MVPs in the world, we will probably get between 60 and 70 showing up and attending. Not everyone can attend, of course. Some people have, child being born. Somebody, a brand new MVP, James Novak, is actually getting married. He had his whole wedding plan for that week, way before he received the award. So there's always, situations that prevent everyone from being able to attend, but the vast majority of people attend. So it's always awesome to be able to hang out with people that I consider my second family. I mean, it really is like a second family, and I care deeply about them and their success as well. And again, being at the MVP Summit is always exciting for that reason. So that's one out of three. The second reason is because we get to see what the product team has been working on. Like you, we stay on top of news. We see functionality coming up, and we do have a call every month with the product team to see, but we don't always get the entire kind of information, right? The jackpot of what they're working on until we go to the MVP Summit. So at the MVP Summit, we get to see sometimes up to 18 months in advance of features and functionality that the team has been working on. We get to really work with the program managers. We really get to work with the people directly working on a solution, and they are very, very interested in our feedback. And the main reason for that is that in the vast majority of cases, and there are MVPs who are not partners or professionals essentially implementing this thing for a living the way I am and the way the vast majority of MVPs are, we have some MVPs who work for customers, right? They're customers themselves. And, the reason for that, or the way the product team looks for our feedback, is because they know that we work directly with customers, and the ones that don't work directly with customers are customers. So they want to know what we think about it. What would our customers think about it? And in the case of those customers, what do you guys think about it? Is this something that you would use? Is this something that would be valuable to your organization and so on? They really want feedback. I remember in the past that we as MVPs have had a lot of leeway on, for example, timelines on when some features will be released. So we would see a feature, for example, that says, oh, we're working on this. We think this is going to come out a year and a half from now, 2 years from now. And then the MVPs will be like, no, we need this immediately. Like, this thing is revolutionary. We need this stuff. And I'm not going to mention any features or releases to keep that under NDA. We're under strict NDA. But I'm telling you, there's a lot more that you guys don't know, non-MVPs don't know about the influence that some of us, as a group have in some of these features, as well as some features that Microsoft, might be working on that they think is, revolutionary. We need to stop everything we're doing to get this release. And then we are kind of like, yeah, well, if you're going to do it, maybe tweak this or add that or whatever. We certainly are. We have amazing conversations that week, and I'm always happy to pass kind of the feedback from my customers. And it's something that I always do. If you're a customer, I do this. I always ask you, is there anything you would like me to ask? Is there anything you would like me to bring up? Anything that is pressing, right, that we need to talk about? And we do have some time in which we actually organize sessions in which we actually talk to the team. So it's sort of like the roles reverse. And I really don't know if I can give you the details on how it works or when it happens or who hosts. So I'm going to keep it as a secret right now. But at some point during the MVP Summit, all I'm going to say is the roles reverse. We have the program managers and Microsoft leadership and all of that sit in a room, and the MVPs present sort of like our wish list. This is what we think. And again, the wish list comes from our customers. This is what we think you guys need to focus on, or we want an answer about, or whatever it is. And again, the team writes that down, and obviously they take it super seriously and start working on providing solutions for that, or putting it on the roadmap, or whatever it is. So once again, not going to talk about specific details or days or anything like that. I love my NDA, and I will do nothing to break the privacy of the process. But essentially, it's not a secret that during the MVP Summit, we have essentially 4 or 5 days in which the product team and the MVPs sort of sync up. We talk about the things that we're working on, what can we do to drive this product to a new level, or to take this product to a new level. The product that we all work and love, Dynamics 365. So that's what we do for days and days and days. And then the third thing is what happens after the sessions are over, in which we get, again, I get to hang out with my family, my MVP family. It's not often, like, if you're into Dynamics 365, this, it's hard to find people to talk to. Like, when people ask me, what do I do? Like, I almost, want to answer like I work with computers, because for the vast majority of the situations, there's really, if I say that I'm a Dynamics 365 solution architect, I mean, they just have no idea what I'm talking about. But then you go to the MVP Summit, and 70 plus people know exactly what you're talking about, because they are also professionals with Dynamics 365. And they also tell you what they're working on. They also tell you, what are some of the bad situations or challenges they're going through right now, or issues that they're having because they live on a country or a continent that is, enacting laws and regulations that is blocking, whatever it is. Like, I get to learn so much from them after kind of the sessions are over, and the sessions die out around 5 p.m., 6 p.m., but we continue to essentially network. I'm just going to call it network until, the late hours of the evening sometimes. So, I mean, it's just a blast. I love the conference. So those two events, me providing my contributions for the year, me getting ready for the MVP Summit, essentially gave me the idea for the topic of this episode. And I realized that we are, whatever it is, 15 minutes into this intro, and we haven't gotten to the topic. So I want to get to it. I started thinking about, those of you who listen to this show that are aspiring MVPs, that want to be part of this family. I mean, trust me when I say this, I don't think, at least I don't know any MVP actively, how do you call this, telling people not to try to become part of the family, discouraging, I guess is the word that I'm looking for, discouraging people from, participating on it, or trying to keep this club closed or anything like that. Most of MVPs, or at least everyone I know, we really, really want to continue to grow the family, because we know that the more people that come from different races and ethnicities and backgrounds and, whatever it is, businesses, countries, you name it, the better we're going to be as a team, and the more we can improve the product. So we want to encourage those of you listening to this show to get after it. Really go and become an MVP. Like, everyone can do it. So because of that, I felt like I wanted to put together another top 10 list. And this is piggybacking from the last episode, which was Daryl talking about the top 10 mistakes CRM developers make. I wanted to talk about the top 10 mistakes aspiring MVPs make. And I just want to say, before we start with the list, that this is my opinion. I have no other co-host in the show. I think that most MVPs would agree with at least the majority of my list. Some of them might not agree with it, or agree with some of them. And obviously, I encourage them to let me know and discuss about it, just like I do with every episode. But I want to make sure that you understand that this is my own opinion on how the program works and how you can sort of become part of the family. And there's no script on this. I just wrote down the list of the top 10 mistakes aspiring MVPs make. One interesting part about this is that I believe this is the first top 10 list that I actually wrote in order, meaning the 10th mistake is not as important or big as number 9 and 8 and so on, number 1 being the biggest mistake. So these ones are in order. And if you're an aspiring MVP, if you've ever thought about becoming an MVP, being part of our family, I strongly encourage you to take note on these. And actually, I think that most of you listening to this that are aspiring MVPs will feel that you already don't do all 10 of these things. That if you don't do any of these things, you're on your way. And I can't wait to have you as part of our family, the CRM MVP family. So, enough said. Let's talk about what are the top 10 mistakes aspiring MVPs make according to Gus Gonzalez. I want to make sure you understand this is my list. So, mistake number 10. Not participating in online communities. I mean, I can't believe, to when I interact with people that are so good, like on the experience they have, and they're so good communicating and explaining complicated things, and they're so valuable, and I would love to have them as part of the family, as part of this group of people improving the product, but they are in no way, shape, or form involved in online communities. I've found this many times where I would say, like, man, you're a portal expert, or you're an expert in data integrations or whatever it is, and like you're awesome at what you do, but then they don't participate at all in online communities like CRM User Group or the Dynamics community, or you name it, anything out there, right? Then maybe they'll have a Twitter account, although sometimes they don't have any social presence whatsoever, but they don't participate in online communities. Look, being an MVP is in large part, it's about your contributions to the community and to the betterment of Dynamics 365 as a whole. But in a small part, it's about being noticed. I don't want to call it a popularity contest, because it's not really a popularity contest. You don't need everyone to notice you and to be super popular. And when we go down the list of mistakes, I want to talk about one big mistake, which is getting noticed for the wrong reason. And how can you prevent that? Because once you get noticed for the wrong reason, man, it's worse than nobody knowing you. I'll just put it that way. But again, we're gonna get to that. So because of that, because it's about, there's some popularity involved, people have to know who you are. Being present in online communities and doing work in online communities will increase your chances of being known, of becoming noticed, of being invited to speak at different events. And obviously, the more activities you do, the more you're invited to do webinars and speak at conferences and all that stuff, the higher your chances of becoming an MVP. So if you want to become an MVP and you're nowhere involved with any online community, any of the official, communities that we all work with every day, then you're essentially setting up yourself for failure. Because you have to get noticed. That is the big thing. And if you didn't know this, I'll just let you know right now that the only way you'll become an MVP is one of two things. Number one, somebody from Microsoft nominates you, which is the way it worked for me. Number two, another MVP nominates you. And how are you going to get noticed by an MVP or by someone from Microsoft if you don't participate in online communities? It's just, I think it's near impossible. I see that some people go to like their local chapters and they like sit on the room and they share the best practices. And I'm always, it happens here in the Atlanta chapter too. We get some people that show up, they share their feedback, they share their experience. I'm like, man, that's awesome. Like, are you online? Like, what do you ever speak? No, I just come to these meetings, which we do 3 times a year. It's just really hard. And perhaps they are not interested in becoming an MVP at all. It happened before. I've reached out to people in the past and I said, hey, you're doing awesome out there. I hope you get your MVP award someday. And the response back is, I don't care about the MVP award. Okay, cool. I hope you don't get it then. I don't know what else I can say. But yeah, I've seen it before. And again, not participating in online communities is a horrible mistake. And that's only 10 on our list of top 10 mistakes. So mistake number 9, let's talk about believing that all it takes is that you just have to be a guru on something. And because of that, that's it. I'm going to be an MVP. That is further from the truth. I just can't even think about anyone out there that this will work for. And I've seen this before with people who are, super, super smart, technical, like they know everything about the product. And just because of that, they think that it's just a matter of time. At some point, I'll be recognized as an MVP. That just doesn't work like that. And I think that goes connected to one of the misconceptions that we discussed in episode number 3, which is believing that MVPs are gurus and know it all. No, that's not the case. I mean, I learn stuff all the time. We have MVPs and in our family that are customers. They don't implement it for a living. So I would say that your average functional consultant solution architect will, quote unquote, know more about Dynamics 365 than one of these MVPs who work for a customer. So being a guru is a good thing because it allows you to share more and share more wisdom with the community. But that's not the only thing you have to do. And I've seen this before time and time again. I remember, back in the convergence days where I was having a conversation with somebody. I think we were doing like Ask the MVPs, which we used to do at convergence. And somebody from the audience said something like, I should be up there. I'm not an MVP, but I know more than half of you guys or something like that. And I was like, I mean, just because you know more than, and I'm not saying that that's not true. I'm not saying that, it's impossible that you know more than MVPs. Of course not, because I know that's completely possible. Maybe he knew more than all of us in the room. But knowing everything is not the only qualifier to become an MVP. So don't focus too much. If you're an aspiring MVP, don't focus too much. And I think this is a double-edged sword. Like, I think that people would then believe that if they are not a guru in something, I cannot be an MVP. No, that's not the case. You don't have to be a guru in something to become an MVP. It certainly helps. Like for me, for example, I consider myself a solution architect, and that's what I do for a living, and that's what I talk about. Implementing Dynamics 365. I don't talk about code because I'm not a developer. I don't talk about portals because I'm not a portal expert. I don't talk about I certainly don't talk about stuff I don't know about, but I don't consider myself a Dynamics 365 guru on everything Dynamics 365 does, because I'm not. I'm not an expert in connected field service. I know what it does. I can probably set it up and take advantage of some of the functionality, but am I a connected field service guru? Absolutely not. So you don't have to be a guru to be an MVP, and certainly if you are a guru in something, that's not all it takes. There's a lot more than that. So let's talk about mistake number 8, because I feel like I was guilty of this mistake before I became an MVP. And I think after I became an MVP, I realized how big of a mistake it was. So I wanted to talk about it. And again, I'll point the finger to myself because I did this, which is number 8, comparing yourself to other MVPs. And the way I think about this and the way I'm talking about it, and at least the way I did it, was I always looked back and said, why are these guys MVPs? Like, what do they do? I'm doing a lot more. I'm speaking more. I'm answering more questions. I'm tweeting more, or whatever it was. I'm blogging more. You just fill in the blank. It doesn't matter what it is. But when you compare yourself to MVPs, the biggest mistake here, and I realized that the way I did it and the way most people do this, is ignorance. You don't really understand what's happening. That's certainly the case with me. Maybe you guys doing this are aware of the way it works, but there's a huge machine behind the scenes when it comes to being an MVP. I mean, we have calls constantly. We test functionality all the time. We provide feedback on bugs. We're typically the first ones who start finding bugs on new releases and provide feedback back. So we essentially help Microsoft in a variety of different topics. And in a lot of cases, like it happened, with me, and I told this to him personally, Shan MacArthur, for example, who now works for Microsoft. I remember looking at Shan and being like, I mean, I do more than this guy, and I'm dead serious about this. I remember when I received my MVP, I was like, man, I've answered like 1,000 questions and Shan MacArthur has 0. Like, this guy doesn't do anything. How is he an MVP? Like, I remember thinking something like that. And then when I became an MVP, I looked behind the scenes at all of the work Shan did, and it was mind-blowing. It was way more than I did. It was way more significant than what I did. And I mean, at that point, I went from what is this guy doing to why am I an MVP? Like, I don't deserve it. These guys doing this work behind the scenes, completely nameless, thankless job. You guys, the people listening to this who are not MVPs, you have no idea of how important it is, the contribution from some of these guys. And I'm not even counting myself on that group, even though I do work behind the scenes sometimes. I don't think I'm on the same level. These guys are, they're superstars. There should be a higher class of MVP award because they deserve it. And again, I think that was a huge mistake from my part, trying to compare myself to MVPs because I didn't see what was behind the curtain. And once I became an MVP, I saw that. I know that this is super, super hard, by the way. I know that those of you who are aspiring MVPs, who perhaps believe you deserve the award and who perhaps deserve the award for real, because I know that there's several people out there who should be part of the family already, but they haven't received the award yet for one reason or another. By the way, MVPs have no say on who gets the MVP award and who doesn't. All we can do is nominate somebody who we believe deserves the award, but ultimately 100% of the answer goes to Microsoft. Microsoft is making that decision, not us. So I know that there are many of you out there who either feel you deserve the award or who maybe you don't think you're ready to receive the award, but you are comparing yourself with the contributions that I do or that Daryl Labar does or Julie Yag, or it doesn't matter. Fill in the blank. Any name of any MVP, put it in there. You can compare yourself to any of us and you will feel that you're doing more or that you're doing equivalent, right? It's like, well, such and such, Juka is writing, 5 blogs a month. I'm writing 6. How come is he an MVP and I'm not an MVP? Well, what you don't know is what happens behind the scenes. Behind the scenes, some MVPs do 10 times, 20 times more work than what you see publicly. And because of our NDAs, we're never allowed to share, our accomplishments behind the scenes. It's sort of like, and I talked on an episode, I think it was like episode 14 or something, about the documentation team, the docs.microsoft.com team, the people that maintain that site and essentially add documentation for us to enjoy. They're like the special forces of the Microsoft Dynamics 365 world, right? We have no idea who they are, but they do amazing work and they like it that way. They don't need to be in the forefront superstar kind of thing. And a lot of MVPs are like that. You would think that they're not really doing a whole lot. And then behind the scenes, they do a lot. So don't make that mistake. I made the mistake. Learn from my own mistake. Don't compare yourself to other MVPs. Don't try to outdo an MVP because that's, what you see publicly. I'm going to, do one more than them just to show. It's not the equivalent. You have no way to see what's behind the scenes and you'll never know. I mean, quite frankly, you will never know what MVPs do until you become one. Once you become one, you'll remember me talking about this. You'll remember this because you'll look back and say, man, he was right. Like, there's a lot that happens. And I still feel unworthy, by the way. When I see all of the work that goes behind the scenes, sometimes I don't think I deserve it as much as these guys. I mean, I would if somehow MVP sort of, they started rationing them and they, only some people could have it, I would give up my title to some of these guys. I mean, I'm 100% honest about this. So I think I drove that point home. So don't compare yourself to other MVPs. That was mistake number 8. Mistake number 7. Thinking that the process to become an MVP should be quick and transparent. I mean, I think that for those of you who are very, very close to receiving the award, this is not a surprise. But I think this mistake was mainly for people who are starting in the work. Maybe you've been contributing to the community for a couple of months. and you're trying to understand what the process is, especially if you're heavily contributing to the community. Like sometimes you will switch roles to another company that is very, very supportive of your contributions and participation on the community. And suddenly you go from writing one blog every couple months to writing daily and tweeting and posting videos and doing a podcast and you're doing all this stuff. And you feel that after you've done it for like 3 months or 5 months or 6 months or whatever, you're sitting back and being like, why am I not an MVP yet? Right? You think that the process should be quick and should be super transparent. Like you're starting to get emails from Microsoft like, oh, hey, good job, high five. Everything is going great. If you post 20 more blogs, you're going to it doesn't work like that at all. The process is not like that. It's never been like that. And I don't think it will ever be like that. The process is long-term. It's a marathon. And a marathon that lasts more than a year, right? And I know that people see when they look at the MVP award, they see that, MVPs are granted for 1 year of contribution. Yeah, that's for current MVPs. New MVPs, you have to do more than that. You have to stand out first, and then once you stand out, people will start paying attention, and then you'll do 1 year on top of that, and hopefully you'll deserve the award. And I really mean it. Hopefully you do, because I won you as part of my family. But this is a long-term thing. Sometimes I talk to people at conferences and they're like, oh, I've been doing this, podcast or video or whatever series or webinars or whatnot, wrote these white papers for the last 8 months. Do you think you can nominate me? No, it's only 8 months though. Like if I nominate you, like I can nominate anyone. I can nominate any name in there, even if you've only been a guest in this podcast once, and that's it. I can nominate you, but I'm going to get shut down, right? And so I think MVPs are very protective of who's being nominated. And I've nominated people in the past that had 10 months of activities, but it seems like they've been in the industry for 2 years or 10 years. And I just get an email back and saying there's not enough. So if I know that you're going to get shut down immediately, which is going to essentially give you negative attention, right? You don't want to stand out for a negative reason, then you better just wait until the time is right. I would say more than a year of activity, more than a year of contribution after you stand out will be the right thing. And the process to get the MVP, it's another thing that is super, super, super frustrating because it's not transparent. You don't get constant communication about it. You have no idea if they're considering you for the MVP award. I mean, you do get a notification. And again, I've been an MVP for 7 years, so I think things have changed a little bit. You do get a notification that somebody nominated you. Maybe you get a notification from the system, and I think it's an automatic one saying, because somebody nominated you, we need your contributions. So you have to provide those. And you'll probably do it on a portal that is very similar to the one the MVPs use already. And then once you provide those contributions, they will analyze it at some point. But you'll never hear like, oh, by the way, you're being analyzed and you should expect a response on April 1st. It doesn't work like that. The process is not transparent like that. The process is behind the scenes. Microsoft does it on their own time. And you probably won't hear anything until you become an MVP. I mean, that's the way it works. Sometimes I've seen it in the past when Microsoft essentially tells you why you've been declined. I've seen that before. And I've seen it, directly, and I've seen it indirectly, meaning the person who nominated you will follow up with Microsoft and they'll tell that person why you were denied or where your application is anyway at any given point. So they'll say something like, oh, we reviewed it, but there's only 8 months of activities. That's why they were declined. And then we pass that information to you because we submitted your name to receive the award. So it's not a transparent process. It's easy for me to say don't get frustrated, but realistically, it's one of those things where once you get nominated, that means that you stood out for the right reasons, because no one out there who has stand out for the wrong reasons will be ever nominated by at least a legit MVP, unless you pay them or something. And I don't think even like that, people will nominate you, right? So you stood out for the right reasons. If you ever get nominated for the MVP award, good job. You stood up for the right reasons, and somebody believes you have what it takes to, you have something that we want in our family that will improve dynamics as a whole for the entire world, essentially. But number two, you essentially, once you submit your activities, and I know it's very, very hard to do it, you need to forget about it. You need to just forget that this process is even happening. Don't even think about it for months. And I know it's really, really hard because once you provide those activities and you put like 50 lines of things or 100 lines of things that you've done on the last year, you feel like, wow, this is awesome. Like I didn't even know I did so much. But there's a chance you won't hear anything for months. I have to assume that anyone who gets submitted right now, for example, probably is not going to get an award until like August. And the reason for that is because Microsoft is analyzing renewals. Now, I can be completely off on this. Maybe the team analyzing renewals is not at all the team analyzing new applications. I don't want to throw Microsoft under the bus because I have no idea how the process works or how the team works behind the scenes. So again, this is just my own opinion. But don't expect that once you answer your activities or once you provide your contributions, you're going to get an answer a couple weeks later. It just doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that for old MVPs. It doesn't work like that for new MVPs. So again, thinking that the process should be quick and transparent is a big mistake aspiring MVPs make. Number 6, and I think this is more valuable today than it was when I received my MVP award and when a lot of us received our MVP awards back in the day. Which is not focusing on a niche, right? Not going into something very specific and kind of becoming known for that one thing or for that specific style or for that specific thing. Not focusing on a niche it's a big deal today. I feel that it is really, really hard to stand out as a generalist, meaning you're just an overall Dynamics 365 expert. It's a lot harder than standing out as, for example, Ulrich Carlson, who is the CRM chart guy, who stood out as a business intelligence expert, chart expert, Power BI expert, and that makes him stand out. Obviously, along with the fact that he's super talented, super smart, and all of the content he released was super useful because it's content that he put together for customers as he implemented Dynamics. So this is not something he's making up along the way. This is a problem that he solved in a real world situation, and now he's sharing with the community what he did to solve it so someone else can kind of copy his answer. And that's great, right? But he stood out because of that. If you think about some of the newer MVPs that have been awarded, they kind of have a niche on it. So I strongly encourage you to find that. And it doesn't have to be a product thing. It doesn't have to be like, oh, I'm only going to focus on field service or I'm only going to focus on, resource scheduling optimization or whatever it is. You don't have to pick one thing like that, but focus on one thing. Like you could just be for CRM administrator, right? That's your niche, and all the content you're gonna write is to help CRM administrators out there, or maybe super users, or salespeople, or whatever it is. Just pick something that helps you stand out. So again, if you blog and try to speak at conferences and do everything about everything, it's just harder to stand out that way. I always like when I see people focusing on user adoption or focusing on data integrations or focusing on portals. Gamification, whatever it is, I like those things because that means you can pick up that niche and run with it, right? It becomes your thing. You become synonymous with that specific topic, which increases your chances of getting noticed. Okay, and it also increases your chances of coming up with ideas a lot faster. If all you're doing is blogging about data imports and data integrations because that's what you do for a living all day, every day, you'll never run out of ideas. There's always something coming up. So that's the way I think about that. Okay, so mistake number 5 on our list, countdown list to number 1. Mistake number 5, not adding your own experience or best practices. I really don't like this, and I think this is probably one that we're going to disagree, me and other MVPs. And the reason for that is I think you make a big mistake not adding your own experience and best practices. And what I'm talking about more specifically is there's a bunch of people out there who are 100% dedicated to just sharing what's new, what's latest and greatest, and that's it. But they don't talk about this is how it will affect my customers, or this is how it will improve, the results I have with my, like, they never add anything beyond what's coming out. Oh, you know what's coming out? The update policies from Microsoft is changing. Okay, so what? Like, I'm always asking that, so what? So what? What's behind the scenes? Don't tell me just that a functionality is coming. Tell me, what does that mean in your own experience, right? Tell me, what does that mean, or what will you do with it, right? What's your own best practice? The best practice should be, I would never implement this, and here's why. Or the best practice is, I can't wait to implement this, and this is why. Or I will only implement it in these certain cases, and here's why, right? I want to hear that. That's what makes you a thought leader, right? The ability that you have to share your own experiences and best practice. No one has had the experience you've had. No one has been on the same projects, on the same roles, with the same challenges and victories that you've had. So everyone has their own experience to add to the table. Don't be that person that just talks about a feature, what it does, and add nothing on top of that. I think that's a big mistake. You should always push in with your own thoughts about a topic. You should always push in or come in with your own experience and what you're predicting about it. Just give us your thoughts. We want that, because your thoughts and your experience and whatever your recommendations are to make this better is what makes MVPs valuable. That's what we want. That's what Microsoft wants. So if you don't show that you have something to add, and something to add that will improve Dynamics 365 as a whole, how are you going to then kind of, demonstrate or tell people that whenever an MVP summit happens, or our calls with the product team happens, and they're showing you a solution or something they're working on, how do you demonstrate that you will be providing feedback that will improve that product or solution if you don't even do it on blogs and articles and videos and tweets or whatever else you do? So I think that's a big mistake. And again, I strongly advise you against that. If you are one of those just posting out there about functionality, how it works, click here, click there, look at the screenshot. I mean, your blog could be amazing. Your video could be amazing. Animation, zooming in, zooming out, all that stuff is amazing. But if you're not telling us how you would leverage it, how do you make it more valuable, how do you make it better, you're missing out. Number 4 mistake on our countdown of the top 10 mistakes aspiring MVPs make. Number 4 is diversifying your contributions. And again, this is on my personal opinion, which is when you see people trying to post on 157 different, mediums, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, whatever that is. I don't use Snapchat. YouTube and Vimeo, and like they post everywhere, every community, every group on LinkedIn, every group on Facebook, every group. Like, I understand if you created one video and you're sharing it everywhere, but trying to answer questions, for example, I just use the answer questions because that's the way I got my MVP, but trying to answer questions in 27 different communities online, it's going to make it harder for you to get noticed rather than answering, let's say, all of the questions that are open on crmvg.com or dynamics.com or community.dynamics.com or whatever community or site or place, right, that you're going to pick to do something. Just go for it. A good example is Derek, for example, Derek Borman. Derek Borman did a great job with the YouTube channel for CRM Tip of the Day. So Derek, back in the day before he received his MVP award, he was coming like weekly or bi-weekly, something like that, with a really, really amazing video that I still watch to this day, right? Where he would do a series like 4 or 5 episodes about voice of the customer, let's just say. And he will go about how do you set it up, how would you use surveys and add his own thoughts about it? How do you use feedback surveys? How do you use workflows to distribute individual survey links rather than, having just surveys that are filled up by anonymous users. Like, he would just essentially kill it week after week after week after week, releasing amazing videos. And that's all he did, right? He wasn't releasing videos on Facebook and releasing videos on Twitter and answering some questions here and there. I mean, he did more than that. I'm not saying that's the only thing he did to get the MVP award. He did more than that, and especially behind the scenes. He's really involved in readiness and stuff. But, he made a decision. He said, look, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to add a lot of my my knowledge, my thoughts, my best practices in video form, and he went for it. And I think, he did an awesome job on that. And just like him, there's many, many other examples on people who become, the guru on whatever you pick it up. Right? It happened to me on the Dynamics community. There's some people on CRM that are killing it. There's some people on other places that are also doing awesome. So I think that if you diversify too much, if you try to do a little bit on 20 different, having 2 posts in 20 communities is not as impactful as having 40 posts in one community, right? It's the same amount of posts, same amount of contribution, same amount of time you spend, but it would definitely make you stand out more. So don't diversify your contributions too much. Just pick something and go for that. That is, again, mistake number 4. Number 3, not participating in preview programs. So as I mentioned, the people, group, company, however you see the entity making the decision on who gets an MVP award and who doesn't get an MVP award is Microsoft. Right? MVPs don't have any say on that. No one else has any say on that. So being noticed by Microsoft, so when your application comes through their desk, as soon as they see your name, John Doe, cool, yeah, I've seen this name before, right? It's highly valuable. Now, if they don't know your name, they'll still research you and all of that. Of course, I don't mean to say that they know every single participant in preview programs in the whole world. That's not the case. But the more you participate, the more active you are with any program or anything that Microsoft is running, the better. It increases your chances, plus it increases the value you provide to the community, because if you are reporting bugs and they're legit bugs on the latest update of Dynamics or whatever it is, you are making it better for the whole community, and that counts as MVP contributions and MVP activity. So not participating in preview programs, I think, is a big mistake. There are people out there putting out amazing content and all of that, but remember, only 2 groups of people can nominate you for the MVP award: Microsoft and other MVPs. That's it. That's all you get. So you want to, if the users love you and you're, answering all these questions for users and stuff, that's amazing value. And some MVP will probably notice you because of it. I know I've noticed many people. I've nominated people myself several times. But don't neglect the Microsoft side. Get involved on the preview programs. Get involved on testing the stuff, because it will be valuable to be noticed by Microsoft for sure. Number 2 mistake on our countdown, and we're down to the last 2, is quality over quantity. I mean, I think we've said this on episode 3. I've said this many, many times. I really, really disagree with the approach of, well, let's just put as much stuff out there as possible. And I think 2 episodes ago when I was talking to Juka, and I mentioned on the episode he was my favorite blogger in the whole world, it's because Juka is a perfect example of quality, right, over quantity. The posts that he releases out there are amazing. I call it Bibles, right? Every time he releases something about some functionalities, like the Bible about that functionality is the go-to place. Sometimes is better than what Microsoft releases on docs.microsoft.com. So he does a great job at quality over quantity. But I guess if I had to rewrite this mistake, the mistake is quantity over quality. That's really the outside or the other side of the coin You have people like Juka who are quality over quantity, aspiring MVPs who will get, and this is the fastest way, by the way. Let me just add this. This is the fastest way you'll get noticed for the wrong reasons. And like I told you earlier in this episode, getting noticed for the wrong reasons is worse than not getting noticed at all. I'd rather, if you are trying to become part of this family, I'd rather no one knows who you are than everyone knowing who you are for the wrong reasons. Because that's going to be almost impossible for you to receive the award. And the fastest way for you to get noticed for the wrong reasons is quantity over quality, right? If you're just releasing a bunch of nonsense out there, just because you want to say that you tweeted 10,000 times a month or that you posted a bunch of messages on LinkedIn, with a quote in there like, CRM, doesn't stand for customer relationship management, stands for, whatever, like it, none of that stuff is quality. You're not improving dynamics. Remember, the way I think about quality is, does this overall improve dynamics for the community? Yes or no? Does it make an impact for the community? Yes or no? And just you posting out there like, code is better when you didn't type it, or what, thoughts like that don't really help at all to improve Dynamics 365 for the community. In fact, they will make you stand out as just someone who releases quantity over quality. And again, that is a really, really big mistake. It was almost number one on my list. It was number one for a while, and until I thought about what number one should be, and then it moved to number two. But I would say it's probably tied for the biggest mistake is to produce quantity over quality. I see this with people using robots or Hootsuite or whatever to just continuously tweet, just, post about. Essentially, they have like an RSS feed for the Dynamics blog, and everything that is posted out there is then tweeted like 10 times a day. You wonder why I don't follow many people on Twitter. I only follow like 50 people, and even though there's a ton of other people out there, it's because a lot of people who I follow produce, quality. They release quality content, not created by a robot, not automatically populated all the time. I want to hear your thoughts. I want to follow you because I think you're a thought leader. I think I can learn from you. And if all you're doing is just automatically posting stuff that you find online, how am I learning from you? Now, I fully believe, again, this is my own thoughts. These are my own thoughts. This is what I believe. I fully believe there's people out there that say, instead of following 100 different people or 100 different sources on Twitter, I'll just follow this one guy or gal and get all my news through them. I mean, that's valuable to me. Yeah, it may be valuable to you, but I think for the vast majority of people, getting to hear from you is more valuable. Getting to hear your thoughts, your best practices, what you think about this is way more valuable. I don't know what else to say about that. Just think about what you've done over the last few months or years or whatever, and think whether you fit into the quality over quantity spectrum or the quantity over quality. And if you are on the quantity over quality spectrum, then I think you should reconsider, unless you don't want to be an MVP, then go for it. Post a bunch of quantity, out there, a bunch of nonsense, but it's just not going to help you. If you're trying to be an MVP. Again, this is a list for aspiring MVPs. If you don't want to be an MVP, you're not interested on it ever, then then you don't have to worry about this list, right? I guess. Okay, so let's talk about what I think it is the number one mistake aspiring MVPs make. And again, this is tied with number two. I think this is as bad as number two or as good as number two. I don't know what to call it, but the number one mistake aspiring MVPs make is doing it for the title. They just want to be an MVP. I think that's just a bad way to become an MVP. Doing all this work just because you want to call yourself an MVP. We can tell, people on the community, people on the family will tell that you are doing it for the title or not. I know that anybody listening to this podcast essentially can drop whatever they're doing and create content and answer questions and create videos and do a lot of quality over quantity 100% and will receive the MVP award. If you do it for long enough, you will get it. But you're only going to get it once because, it's very, very hard to be a multiple times MVPs if you don't enjoy actually doing the work the MVPs do in front of the scenes or behind the scenes. It's very glamorous. When you guys see my videos on our YouTube channel, the CRM MVP Media YouTube channel, or you hear this, podcast episodes and I talk about how I went to Stockholm or whatever. Yeah, that's very glamorous stuff. That's great to do. But there's a lot of other stuff that happens behind the scenes that you guys don't know about. And when you're an MVP, you not only have to be willing to do that stuff, but you have to enjoy it. I actually enjoy doing that. Right? I enjoy it. A good example is a few months ago, I was in Seattle doing some work over there. It wasn't for a conference. And I was invited to speak at the Dynamics 365 event in Johannesburg. So I flew from Seattle all the way to Johannesburg. I landed at 6 a.m. or something like that in Johannesburg on the Saturday that I was speaking at. And I went directly after 38 hours, I don't know, whatever it was, 36, 38 hours of flying. I went to speak at an event for an hour or two, and then I was done. I flew in the next day or so. I flew in back all the way to Atlanta for whatever many hours was that. Now, it might sound cool to be able to go to South Africa, but I didn't do it for the coolness of going to South Africa. I just wanted to help on the event, and I love sharing, my thoughts and best practices anywhere it is. Even though it took me like 60 hours of travel to speak for 1 or 2 hours, I think it was completely worth it. I loved it. I love doing that. And I love doing the work that is perhaps not as glamorous. The work that happens behind the scenes, putting together all these videos and podcasts and all that stuff is a lot of work. And I don't get paid to do this stuff at all, but I love doing that. So when you try to become an MVP and you do it just for the title, I just want to be an MVP. I really, really, maybe if I do a few more blocks, maybe I'll get it. You'll only get it once. And that's only for a year, and then it's going to go away. Not only that, but you're going to be famous for the wrong reasons, at least amongst MVPs. We will know who those MVPs are. You're not going to really add a ton of value if you're only going to be on the system for a year. I really want to grow this family, and I want you to be on the family for a longer time, even if I'm not on the family anymore. Because if you are part of the family, that means you have a lot of quality that you can add to Dynamics 365, which is the system that we all work with and love, right? So because of that, I strongly discourage you to just pursue the title, to just call yourself an MVP. If you look at Navy SEAL training, for example, you will see it, at time and time again, how the attrition rates are so abysmal, right? They have something like 80% attrition rate. So out of every 100 people that try to become a Navy SEAL, 20 or less than 20 will actually end up becoming a Navy SEAL. And the reason for that is that a lot of people that go to SEAL training, they just want the title. They want to call themselves a SEAL, but they don't want to put in the work that it takes to become a SEAL. Again, I'm not a Navy SEAL. Of course, I didn't even serve in the military, so I'm not probably the most qualified person to talk about this, but I've read enough and I've seen enough and I've met SEALs before that they'll talk about that. And I bet this applies for anything, for Green Berets, this applies for other militaries in the world, SAS, whatever it is, this probably applies to that. Wanting the title but not being willing to do the work or not enjoying doing the work. Some of these guys that graduate as SEALs or become SEALs, for the Navy, these guys enjoy doing that, right? They love it. They can't get enough. That's why sometimes they have, they struggle so much to retire, for example, because they love the teams. They love to be part of that family. And that's how MVP should be. I feel that, we want to grow. I feel that we want more people to be involved, but we want the right people. We want people who enjoy doing this. It's not for everybody. Being an MVP is not for everybody. It requires a special kind of person, not a guru, not a, overly, super smart, although some MVPs are obviously super smart and gurus, but people who really enjoy providing, providing quality or improving Dynamics 365 as a whole for the community and for the world, and love sharing what they know, what mistakes they've made, what things they've learned. They love doing that. And as long as you do that, I hope to see you as part of the family, because you'll be a longtime member and I can't wait to learn from you. So those are the top 10 mistakes aspiring MVPs make, just to go down the list one more time in case you didn't take notes. Number 10, not participating in online communities. Number 9, believing that all it takes is just to be a guru. Number 8, comparing yourself to other MVPs. Number 7, thinking that the process should be quick and transparent. Number 6, not focusing on a niche. Number 5, not adding your own experience or best practices. Number 4, diversifying your contributions too far that you don't stand out. Number 3, not participating in preview programs. Number 2, and really tied for number 1, quality or quantity over quality. And number 1, doing it just for the title. Don't do that. That's a big mistake that aspiring MVPs make. I hope you enjoyed the show today. I know that it wasn't really about Dynamics 365. I think episode 3 about becoming an MVP, I think it's called So You Want to Be an MVP. It's one of our most popular episodes ever, perhaps because it's one of the oldest too. It's been downloaded a lot. If you haven't listened to that, go back and listen to that. I recorded the episode with Redmond, who's a current CRM MVP. That was about 2 years ago when we recorded this thing. It's still valid today. But again, I know that I was inspired by the activities that happened this week, getting ready for the summit and providing my contributions for the community. I invite you to just Google my name, Gus Gonzalez, Microsoft MVP, and it will take you, one of the first results will take you to the Microsoft MVP page, and you can see my contributions, just so you have an idea of the things at least that are not behind the scenes, because there are some contributions that only Microsoft can see, and those are the ones that happen behind the scenes. But the public ones are, you can see them there, and you can see what I've done between April and now, just so you have an idea of what I've done so far that is publicly facing, that you guys can see, in case you want to, get an idea of how much work it takes to be an MVP and to continue to do it. For me, again, it's a pleasure. I don't see it as work. I don't do it because I have to do it or somebody's paying me to do it. I love it. Even if I lost the award in July, they tell me that I didn't do enough or I don't deserve the award, whatever it is. Podcasts are going to keep coming out. Videos are going to keep coming out. I will be keeping, I'll continue to talk at conferences or whatever it is. I'll continue to do all that stuff. I just love doing it. And as long as you guys keep listening, I'll keep telling you what I think about things and what best practices I agree with or disagree with, or whatever other shenanigans we come up with on future episodes of the CRM MVP podcast, which, by the way, you can download from crmmvppodcast.com. And obviously, like you've done in the past, email me at info@crmmvppodcast.com or send me tweets for future guests or future topics that I would like to talk about. Also, if you have any questions for some of the other MVPs that I'll be meeting with by the time you're listening to this episode, please go ahead and send it my way, and I'll be happy to ask and get an answer for you. But until then, and episode 50, which will be recorded during the MVP Summit, the Microsoft MVP Summit, we'll see you guys in 2 weeks with episode number 50. I hope you enjoy this one. We'll see you then.